suffer? Do their local constituents suffer? How do we balance that all? So today's class, we're going to learn that through the Parsha and through Abraham. So it gets a little bit apropos to what's going on. Okay. So what advice would you give someone who has to figure out their balance of priorities? If someone has a kind of has challenging, issues when it comes to where do they give their priority, where they give their attention, how do they split themselves up between all the people who need them?
I think it's very hard being a multitasker. I don't know if I have the best advice right now.
Oh, Bess, by the way, I'm going to give a plug actually. If anyone here is interested in some professional coaching, I have a very good friend who does coaching, and she sent me a little thing. If anyone would like in their professional lives, or maybe it doesn't have to be a professional lives, but if anyone is, in a time of their transitioning from one thing to the next and like to have her expertise in coaching, reach out to me. I'll send you
Oh,
her
cool.
info.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. She's really great person. Okay, very smart, wise. Okay. Anyway, so let us learn the Parsha and the Rashi and what the Rebbe says, and we'll figure this all out. So for this lesson, we are going to focus on a few of I want to say Rashi's rules for this lesson. And let's see if they have, no, they don't have. Okay. And that is Rashi only attributes a meaning to a name when the text requires it. Now, I guess this is what we're going to learn now. 2, if a word requires an explanation, Rashi explains it the first time it appears. And 3, Rashi does not use unusual phrases unless they add understanding. Okay, so keep these rules in mind. Rashi only attributes a meaning to a name when the text requires it to. So not everyone's name in Torah is explained by Rashi unless he feels there's a very strong need to. If a word requires explanation, Rashi always explains that word the first time it comes in the Torah. And number 3, Rashi does not use unusual phrases unless there's a very strong reason to. Okay, so now let's go into the Parsha. So we all know Abraham, the father of the Jewish people. And he was named actually Avram. That was his original name. That's what he was named at birth. And he had that name for the first 99 years of his life. He was known as Avram. And then what happened, how did his name get changed to Abraham? Is when he was circumcised at the age of 99. And Hashem gave him his new name. He said, now your name will no longer be Avram, but it will be Abraham. So let us see what it says in the Torah about this, in the actual Parsha. Text 1a. We'll start with Batya.
Yeah, sure. Your name will no longer be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, because I appointed you father to multitudes of nations.
Okay, so how does Abraham mean the father of multitudes of nations? So let's look at the Rashi. That's the first place we're going to look, because we said Rashi, we said last week, is the basic explanation of the Torah. Text 1b. Sylvia.
Because I appointed you father to multitudes of nations. Abraham is an acrostic for Av, Haman, Goyim, Hebrew, or father of the multitude of nations. The letter Resh, which is in his original name, connoted that he was father only to the nation of Aram, his native land. Though he was now father to the entire world, this letter did not move from its place.
Okay, so now we're going to take this text 1b, and this is what we're going to analyze through the Rebbe's. Well, the Rebbe analyzes it, and so we're going to learn what the Rebbe, how the Rebbe analyzes it, and what we can learn from what Rashi is saying. So the first thing I want to point out is that Abraham graduates to a father of many nations. So acronym. So if you take the Hebrew words for, if you look up here, I don't know if you can see Av, if you read the Hebrew key, Av, Hamon, Gayim. So you take the Av, that's for the part, this second word, and then the Hey, and you put that together, and he comes out the word, that's how they got the word Abraham, the name Abraham and the men. But
Where's the
Abraham,
where's
huh?
the Resh? Where's the Resh?
Where is the Resh? That's the question for tonight. Where is the Resh? The Resh is
That's what I was
missing.
wondering. That's what, yeah.
Yay
Okay.
for Batya.
Good. But yeah.
Okay, and I'm glad I was able to show it to you on the screen, so it's very easy
Good
to
job.
see. Avraham. So we're not the Avraham. Okay, so Rashi doesn't answer this question. It just states that look down here, which says this letter does not move from its place. Like the resh does not move from its place. What does it mean? Does it not move? Why can't we just say the resh stays? Why does it say the resh does not move from its place? It's a very interesting way of saying that. So it's interesting to note. So Abraham, right? Hashem added the hey to Abraham's name. He left the resh first, and we're going to learn about that soon. And Sarah, her name was originally Sarai with a yud, and the yud was taken out and replaced by a hey. And it says that Sarah complained, "Hey, what did you do with my yud? Why did you take it away? Why did you switch it?" So Hashem took the yud of Sarai, and he gave it to Moshe's disciple, of the person who took after Moshe, which was, his name was originally Hoshea, and his name was changed to Yehoshua. So they added the Yud to Hoshea to give him extra strength. And so that's where Sarai's Yud went to Yoshua. She became Sarah. Abraham, for some reason, nothing was taken out of his name. He just got added in there. So why does he have the resh? If Avraham would mean that he's a father of multiple nations, where happened to the resh? Why is the resh still there? Why does Rashi say it did not move from its place? A very interesting wording. Okay, so what is Rashi trying to tell us that will help us understand why the resh, oh, here it is, right? Why the resh remains, okay? So Rashi does tell us the meaning of the name Avram, right? Father of Aram, Avram. So that's doesn't really explain everything, but there it is. It tells us his name, why is he telling us the original name of original meaning of his name? The meaning of his original name. Number two, if Rashi is so convinced that the name Avram has meaning, why doesn't it tell us that? Why doesn't Rashi tell us that when Avram is born, when we first see Avram's name? Why is it telling us only now when he's changing his name?
Too many riddles.
yeah, we're going to go through it. Don't worry. And Rashi has this unusual phrase, which I mentioned, that the resh did not move from its place. Why is such a weird wording? Why does it say it like that? Oh, Malka joined. Hi, Malka. Okay. Okay, so let's go. So, here. Oh, I didn't. Okay, could I show it to you? Okay. So, did Abraham's father, Terah, did he name him knowing that he would be father of Ram and named him so? No, he didn't know. For whatever reason, he chose the name Avram, and he liked that name, and he gave his son the name Avram. But he didn't really know that one day Avram would be a father of Aram. So he didn't do it intentionally in that way. Okay, but only later do we understand all of that. Okay, so let's go on to text number 2. Shelley.
When a child is born and the parents choose a name, the name choice is not random. God places the name that belongs to their child's soul in the parents' minds.
So we're talking here about a Jewish name. So Hashem guides parents in naming their child with their Jewish name with divine inspiration. Now, anyone here who does not yet have a Jewish name, who did not have a Jewish name, and then they name themselves, they get the divine inspiration. So this is just another plug for if you do not yet have a Jewish name, it's a good time to do that. We do that at the Torah reading. Okay, so how do we know that Terah, Abraham's father, did not mindfully name Avram with the idea in mind that he would be the father of Aram? We know that is because Rashi does not mention it there. Rashi doesn't say, hey, he named him Abram because he'll be the father of Aram. No, it's only now because now we know once Hashem changed his name to Abraham, there's a lesson we learn out from Abram, and now we understand what the meaning is. Okay, so how do we know that Abram means father of Aram?
That's what I was wondering. Okay. Where was that? All right.
Okay.
These
So
lessons, sometimes it's like you've got to listen and then finally get the answer to what we're talking about.
This is how the Rebbe usually takes these. He asks a whole bunch of questions and you go, oh my God, what are all these questions? And he starts answering them and no, that can't be the answer because of this. And then eventually gets to tie it all together and it all makes sense. Okay.
Got it.
So, and also Hashem left the Resh in the name of Abraham, even though the new name doesn't need the Resh, right? So because it wasn't removed, this is what tells us something about Abraham, that he didn't disconnect from his previous identity. So his first identity was Avram, father of Aram. Now that Hashem put the name Avraham, and he didn't take out the Resh, and the new name Abraham is father of multitude of nations, now we know it means that first Avram was the father of Aram, but it didn't mean now he became something bigger and greater, so he like shed his old skin. Oh, I don't care about that anymore. That was the old me. That was the young me. Now I'm bigger and greater, the new me. So I don't care about my old identity. I just taking on a new identity. No, he did not disconnect from his like father, from his leadership of the nation of Aram. Instead, he expanded his like responsibility. He expanded his role. Now he's not just the leader, the father of Aram, but he's the leader of multitude of nations. Because what was Abraham's whole life? Spreading Judaism, spreading the idea of, not Judaism, but the idea of one God, monotheism, and being a spiritual leader in the world at that time. And he created many, many, many followers, many people who supported this, and him, and came to the belief of one God, and they dropped their pagan ways, their idol worshiping ways. And so when he became so much more famous, I want to say greater, become a step up from what he used to be, he didn't say, oh, okay, now I'm something bigger, now I'm greater. And it doesn't make a difference what my original role was of just being the leader of Aram. No, I still have to give them attention and give them my time, and I'm still responsible for that. Okay? So if his new name gave him a new identity, the Resh would have dropped. But because it remained in his name, we learn, A, what Avram means, that he's father of Aram, and two, that his name only added to the meaning of who he is, and he kept both responsibilities. Text 3a. Catherine, you want to do that?
Okay, sure. I'm still not totally sure I understand the Hebrew thing from before, but I'll ask you again. Okay.
Okay, sure.
This is what Rashi means when he writes the letter Resh, or Rosh, which was in his original name, connoted that he was father only to the nation of Amran, his native land. With these words, Rashi informs us that there is a problem. The letter Resh does not belong in the Abraham acrostic. Its presence in the new acrostic tells us that the name Abram also has meaning, a meaning that is consistent with the meaning of Abraham, father of multitude of nations.
Does that make it
Actually,
more clear?
it's kind of interesting because the Rosh is like Rashi, and then the Sareh, like the Rashi. Almost seems like he took from those two.
You're always finding connections. Okay. Okay. So basically, because the Resh is there, we learn, that's like the Ra, the R, we learn A, that his original name was, meaning was father of Aram, and B, we learn that he didn't drop his old role. He didn't like say, oh, I'm bigger and greater now than whatever I used to be. I don't have to be so responsible for that anymore. So he kept his old role, and while he expanded to his new role. Okay. So the
But
Torah
what about what Batya asked, that Resh, or where is that, or what?
Yeah, that's the thing. Why is the Resh still there? If the new name is supposed to be father of all of multitude of nations, it should just be Avram and not Avraham. So why does it still have the Ra? Because his old name was Avram. So the idea is that he has the old name and the new name combined. It's his old role and his new name combined in his name. And that's why the Resh did not get dropped, because it's not like he became a whole new identity. He just expanded who he was.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's so hard when you don't read Hebrew to get all those nuances, but
yeah, Yeah. So that's how we know that Avram had meaning to it. Okay. So Torah tells us that Abraham means, so the Torah tells us straight out in text one, when we read text 1a, it told us straight out, Abraham means that you're the father of a multitude of nations. But it does give us a hint, a key to what his old name. The Torah does not say straight out what his old name means, but because he left the resh inside Abraham's name, it gave us a hint that now we know what his old name meant. Okay. And that Abraham is an expansion of the old name and not a totally new name. And from there, we were able to figure out what Avram means. Okay, so for example, let's say you look at a building. They're building a building and you see a building and you say, wow, look at this big building. It must have a really good foundation. And you could say, oh, this must be a steel foundation or this foundation, cement foundation, whatever this foundation is, by looking at the building. So the same thing, when you look at Abraham's new name, Abraham, you realize that originally the foundation was Avram, that was the foundation of him, and now he grew into Avraham. Okay, so that part of the name means father. That was in both names, and when he was born, it was Avram, which was father of Aram, and now he's father of all nations, and that's how father of Aram. Okay, let's continue 3b. I was not getting too confusing. Okay, go for it. Who are we up to? Back to
Sylvia.
Huh?
Sylvia.
Oh,
You want to read again? You can read
no,
again.
wait, it's back to me. Okay.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Rashi goes on to explain the meaning of Abram. He was only the father of Aram, and this did not move from its place. With this, Rashi informs us that the letter Resh of the original name means that he is the father of Aram, and this kinship to Aram remained in place after the name change. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand this. In other words, the new name, Father to all nations, did not exclude fatherhood to Aram. It includes Aram and expands on it to include all the nations.
So to try to explain, if say a mother has a baby, first child, and like all her love is to that new child, and they say, okay, all my love is to this child, right? I can't, my heart is so full. And then she has another child, and then people say, oh my goodness, how are you going to love the second child? Do you have enough love for both children? But no, she expands her love, and she loves both children. It's not like she loves the first one, this percentage, and then the second one, this percentage. No, they each have 100% of her love. So when Abraham, at first, he was just the father, as I said before, it's more like a kind of like a spiritual leader of Aram. But then he became spiritual leader of multitude of nations, and he still had the same attention, the same love. He gave the same, time or need wherever they needed to Aram, and he was still able to do it also to other nations. So it's not like it took away from Aram or made it less, or he just dropped
God
them.
didn't want to just give him a big head.
So we're going to ask a question when it says that Rashi says that the resh did not move from its place. This gives us a hint that Abraham himself, when he transitioned from father of Aram to father of many nations, from a local leader to a global leader, he didn't like move from one to the next and say, okay, I forget about you. He remained father of Aram, and he also became father of multitude of nations. And the analogy is here, if you see in front of you, you have the old-fashioned calendars. You tear out the page as you end the day, right? It says day, 1st November. You tear it out when yay, okay, day 1 is over. 2nd of November, tear it out when it's over, right? And you just throw it out, and you're like, hey, whatever was past, I don't care about it anymore. It's gone. I finished it. I got there. And then there's like the planner. I don't know, when I was a kid, we used to have these thing called Chandlers. It was a Chicago thing. Remember, did you have Chandlers in your days back? Yeah, I don't know. Okay. It was like, the weekly planner, like you have a little book for the whole year, and every like page spread was a week, and you filled out every day what you had to do, what your homework was, all the different things.
Planner.
And you don't tear it out as you go, but you turn the page and you can always look back. So the analogy is that you could go as a leader from one stage to the next and say, okay, whatever was old, I don't need that anymore. Now, I'm not a local, I'm not a state representative anymore. Now I'm a federal, I'm the representative of my state for the Congress. Before I was just for my, for the state, assembly. Now I'm for the, actual Congress. So I don't care about my little constituents anymore. Now I'm much bigger and greater. No, you have to build on each accomplishments. Okay, I was a leader for this little group, and now I'm a leader for a much greater group. I still have to care about that little group that I was first leading. So this is what Abraham did. His earlier accomplishments are present still in his life, and he's vibrant and expands into new accomplishments, but he still holds on to the old. He still doesn't say, okay, I don't need this anymore. I give it up, or it's not important to me anymore. So he just grows and becomes bigger and better, gets into bigger shoes in his job, and not just like throws out the his old responsibilities. Okay, so okay, so right, sometimes, as I said at the beginning, you have politicians, and they become really, really big, and once they become really, really big, you feel like they forgot about you, right? And are they going to actually listen to you and listen to your concerns and do what the voters want? Or once they're big in office, they're just going to forget about that and try to just gain politically. So the way that we're living here, the way that Abraham did it, he still cared. Okay. Okay. So Abraham, as a spiritual leader and actual father, he treated everyone as family. He treated them all as his own children, and he didn't forget about his days when he was Avram. Okay. And we learn this from Rashi through the letter Resh, which did not move from its place. Same thing. Abraham did not move, did not lose significance once he became a greater person. Okay. Text number 3C, Sylvia.
This is why Rashi used the phrase did not move from its place rather than was not removed from it or the like. Even if the letter Resh were erased from the new name, rendering the new name Avram, I guess.
Yeah, if we didn't have the Resh, it would be Avram.
Yeah.
Have the R.
It would not imply the cancellation of its meaning. Abraham's role as father to Aram would have remained intact. However, it would have implied that the Resh, Abraham's relationship with Aram, had been folded into, Abraham's or Abraham's new status as father to the world. By saying that it did not leave its place, Rashi emphasizes that the Resh remained rooted in place. Abraham's role as father to Aram stood out in the new acrostic because, acrostic, what does acrostic mean?
Acrostic means when you have a few words and you combine them into one.
Put them together?
Yeah, you just take the first letter of each word or something like that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. The new acrostic because his role as father to Aram remained independently significant despite his new role as a father to the world. Oh, I didn't know that acrostic. Okay.
Okay.
No acronyms, so I guess it's like okay.
Yeah, so it's like so if you have
okay.
If you just think of something that I could think of that's like, like if you say I don't want to use this one, but it's only one. Okay, let's say you say DEI, right? And that was a word, yeah, but it stands for divest,
okay.
Equality, whatever. I don't know what it stands for. Okay. Anyway, so it's obvious that being a father to all the nations includes being a father to Aram. So even if the Resh was not in his name, he would still be the father of Aram. But we hear by Hashem leaving the Resh in Abraham's name and keeping it Abraham, we know now that Abraham took his job seriously of being the father of Aram, and being the father of all the nations. So he still cared and did what, still gave Aram whatever attention or whatever services that they needed. So it's not just about the letter and the meaning of the name, but it's about his behavior. So we learn Abraham's behavior through his name, through his new name, and through the resh still being there. Okay, so in general, Rashi is officially there just to explain the plain meaning of the text. But since the text does not give us the meaning of Avram, Rashi figures out what it means, okay? And if the Torah doesn't give the meaning to it, then is it Rashi's place to give the meaning to it? If the Torah doesn't say, oh, this is the meaning of Avram, do we really care? Does it really make a difference? Are we supposed to try to figure it out? So there are different rabbis that say different things. Let's see, 1 second. For A, Shelley, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Don't seek meaning for names to which the Torah does not attribute meaning.
Okay, and then the next one, I guess you can read it too.
Okay. There's no need to seek meanings for the names of places.
Okay, so these are two commentaries that say, hey, it's not up to us to give meaning to the name Avram. So why is Rashi so insistent on giving that the meaning to it? Why does he have to tell it to us? Because he realizes that the new name with the resh is there to teach us something, because it's inconsistent with the new name, right? It should have been Avram. And because of that, that's why he finds it important to tell us what his original name meant. Now, within Rashi, even though this is not maybe Rashi's basic intention, we also find the deeper secrets in the Torah. We find the wine, of the Torah, that we learn certain things that are like meaningful for our lives. So, again, as we said, the first thing that we learned meaningful for our lives is how Abraham continued caring and giving attention and whatever it was that he needed to give to the people of Aram, even though now he had a bigger and greater role. So it's a good lesson for us. And so we look at the most successful people, as I said before, and we say, hey, do they still care for their family? Are they still do family time? Do they still care for their loved ones? Are they, or are they just chasing fame and fortune or whatever it is? So there are 3 tiers of responsibility, okay? So the first, most basic tier of responsibility is yourself and your family. Are you taking care of yourself and your family? Are you giving yourself and your family time, attention, right? Self-care. The next tier would be the community and friends. You're like your, close circle around you. Are you doing your responsibilities as a community member, as a friend? And then the third is distant strangers, people who are farther from you and you don't really know. So let us read text number 5. Okay, go for it. Catherine, I think up to you.
Okay. Our primary responsibility in life is to make ourselves spiritually whole. This can be divided into 3 general tiers, and we must do our best in each. The 3 tiers are: first is to be the best that we can be in terms of character and behavior. The second is our relationship with our community. To assist everyone, we strive to be the best that we can be and introduce godliness and holiness to our surroundings. Where's family in that?
Oh, sorry, continuing.
Oh,
that was the first
the
one.
third is a tier for which we are ostensibly not responsible. These are people beyond our physical or spiritual reach. However, we must do our best to reach them too, for one is obligated to say, the world was created for me to improve. Therefore, they too are within our scope of responsibility.
Okay, so here are three things we're responsible, the 3 tiers. There's priorities, obviously. Ourself and our family is the number 1 priority, the community, and then the more distant people. So obviously we can't sacrifice our family to help our community, and we can't sacrifice ourselves sometimes to help our family. There's a way to put things into place and put things in perspective. We need to be in a healthy state of mind, right, before we help others, as they always say on the plane. Put on your own mask before you assist those, next to you who need help, children or elderly or whatever it is. So we need to be in a good state of mind and we need to be in a good spiritual state before we go and try to, be influential on other people in their spiritual states. Okay. The text number 6, Rebecca Batya.
Though it is our mission to utilize our talents and abilities to impact our surroundings and the entire world, it must begin with us. First, we must ensure that our own behavior is just and appropriate, and only then can we influence others. Once we ensure the propriety of our behavior, we can exert positive influence on others. First, others in our neighborhood, then in our city, until our influence extends to government officials and national leaders. It all begins with being a living example in our personal life.
It continues.
Moreover, only when our personal behavior is fitting can we merit divine blessing to influence others successfully. We see this from experience. The success of any community activist depends largely on the activist's personal integrity. When we behave appropriately, our circle of influence expands because people value esteem and respect, our what does that say?
Propriety.
Propriety and integrity.
Okay, so we can't tell others to be honest if we ourselves are not honest yet, right? We can't, before we tell others how to conduct themselves, we have to make sure our conduct is how it should be, moral and just. There's a famous story in the Gemara about a rabbi and his neighbor, and the neighbor were complaining, the people are complaining that the neighbor's tree branches, outside. They were complaining that that the neighbor's tree branches were like protruding out into the street, and it was making it hard for people to walk on the sidewalks. That sound familiar? Anyway, so they went and asked, they went to complain to the neighbor, and they said, "Hey, you got to cut down your tree branches. They're sticking out. We can't walk down the sidewalk." And the neighbor went to his the Rabbi Yanai, who was his neighbor, said, "Am I required to cut down my trees because they're sticking out into the sidewalk?" And Rabbi Yanai says, "You know what? Let me get back to you." That night, Rabbi Yanai goes to his own trees and he cuts them down. And then he went and he told his neighbor, "Yes, you should cut down your trees." And he said, "Oh, but what about you? Also have big trees that sometimes stick out." And Rabbi Yana said, "Come look at my tree. I cut it down. If I didn't cut it down, you could leave your trees intact too." So basically, he's showing that before what it's like for me to cut down my tree, how painful or however it is for me. So I'm not going to tell him to do something unless I myself can do it myself. And that's how, before you go and tell somebody else what to do or how to be better or some advice or some spiritual advice, you have to make sure that that you are ready to do that you have that moral fortitude to be able to do that too, not just tell somebody else what to do.
So it's practice what you preach.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Well, I try, but my client today, she didn't even call me. She didn't show up. And then she says, "Oh, well, I only pay with a credit card." Who only pays with a credit card? No check, no cash, no Zelle, no.
Usually, unless I have to pay.
Why didn't she just call me and tell me she didn't want to come in?
Mm-hmm.
I practiced.
She wasn't there yet. She wasn't there yet. So she could have gone to the bank and gotten some money. Okay. So in families, children are the number one priority, or the next generation is, so important. And they are the future. And it's so important for people to take care of their own family. But many times, people who are very active in, whatever it is, and community activism and um, in some big wave of new thinking. They get caught up in it. I actually remember Golda Meir being very, she looked back with regret that she was so busy being prime minister, she didn't take care of her children the way she would have liked. And here, and so many times people, they just get lost in their obligation to community or obligation to trying to, change the world, starts a movement that they forget to take care of their own children. And we're going to read a secular text, number 7, about such a case. And you can look up afterwards. Rebecca Walker, her parents were very big, I think, in the feminine movement or the equal rights movement, something like that. Okay, text number 7. Where are we up to? Sylvia.
Rebecca Walker is a case in point. Walker has long struggled to come to terms with how her parents' civil rights activism absorbed her childhood. My parents were so deeply involved in the civil rights movement that a lot of my needs as a young person were not fully seen and addressed or considered as important as the movement. It wasn't an intentional neglect. They were missing what was happening. Is that right? Yeah. Happening in our lives because there was so much consuming their lives. It felt very lonely and vulnerable. Gandhi's children had a lot of problems with him. It's hard to find children of very visible and profound activists whose children felt cared for and nurtured in the same way the movements were. It's unfortunate. The words anxiety and security and no communication come up frequently in interviews of children of rigorous activists, something meticulously documented in John Blake's book, The Children of the Movement, which catalogs a series of interviews with the adult children of civil rights activist leaders. Most expressed a lifelong anxiety about their relevance in their own families, but also about whether they had even ever been seen as a person outside of the concerns of the movement. In many cases, consent was not even considered. Devotion was required. As Brown writes, a large number of adult children of activists are emotionally distant from their parents, who they say are more suited for protests than parenthood.
Very sad, but true.
Yeah.
So it's very important to start at home, okay?
Yep.
And just, I don't know if anyone here has children, but
my parents were very involved with work, and I think we were neglected. I mean, they loved us, but to a certain point, they were striving so hard to make a living that there's a little bit of a disconnect, but we're all fine. But, children really need, we do really need, something. we need the coddling. We need attention when we're growing up. And
right.
sometimes it's the extended family when you have it.
Right. So that's the old days that they had, the extended family lived at home together. I read a whole book about that, how the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, everyone was all around, the cousins. So you got, or in religious families where we have big families, so you get attention somewhere, with the siblings, with this, with that. But when you're just like a family unit, just like, living alone, and parents are very, very hard at work.
It's hard.
Some parents know how to do it. Some parents do know how to give their child attention and work outside the house or be active in something else. And some people have a harder time.
And I should say I have a good relationship with my mother, and I had a wonderful relationship actually later as an adult with my father. So, I mean, it all came to.
Right. Okay. So here are some tips. Text number 8, go out to Shelley.
While you're working with your hands, talk to them and listen to them. Try to do work that requires concentration when they're not around, and easier work when they are. Look for small opportunities to spend time alone with each child, even if only for a few minutes. One excellent method is to take only one child with you in a rotation system when you go out to the dentist, shopping, bank, etc. It makes the child feel very special. Buy him a little treat and talk to him, and the rewards will come.
Okay, so now let's say you have your family responsibilities down pat, or you don't have a big family you have to, worry about or have a lot of responsibility for. Then the next step up is your community. There are actually different levels in the laws of tzedakah. So we learn in the Rambam, Maimonides, the levels of who you have to give tzedakah to first. Who's the first priority? Who's the second priority? Who's the third priority? And also, this has to do with how close they are to you, or how distant they are to you. So let us read text number 9. Catherine.
A poor person in your family comes first. Poor people in your household receive priority over poor people in the city. Poor people in your city receive priority over poor people in other cities. This is inferred from the order of the passage to your brother, to your poor person, and to the needy in your land.
Okay, so not just about charity, but we could also do this about obligation in general. Your obligations as to a community is first to the people who are closer to you and live right there and with you, or family members, and then it goes on to people who are farther and farther away from you. Many times there were rabbis of congregations, different places around the world, and they wanted to move to, let's say, to Israel or to somewhere different, and the Rebbe most of the time discouraged them and told them they need to stay. They can't leave their flock. They have to stay and continue leading the community where they are. One example is the chief rabbi of Morocco in the 1970s. His name was Rabbi Shalom Messas, and the city of Haifa offered that he make Aliyah and become the chief rabbi of their city. And the Rebbe advised him not to. Exactly. So yeah. Okay. So back to Batya.
Red knife.
Right.
I was surprised to hear that Your Honor was advised to consider relocating to a different country. I am certain the suggestion is impractical considering the multitudes, not only in your city itself, a thriving community, but also in its environs. In the country at large and in neighboring countries who require Your Honor's mentorship. They require your halachic guidance and your inspiration to love and fear Hashem. Nevertheless, I permit myself to write about this in the confidence that you will certainly continue to lead your sacred congregation in the country in which you reside. May you continue in your seat of rabbinic governance for many years, and may you experience the joy of witnessing the effigy of your work.
The efficiency continues.
If our sages of blessed memory taught the poor people of your city would first, this is the Mishnah, Torah, Laws of Gifts to the Poor, 7:13. It is certainly true that the poor people of your entire community come first.
For one such as yourself. No, you skipped a line.
I know. Super.
No, for one. First, for one such as yourself.
For one,
elaboration.
Okay. What Suri said. I am certain that you. I am so tired. I can't keep my eyes open. I yourself elaboration is quite superfluous.
Superfluous.
What does that mean?
No need to explain. It's like
okay.
You don't need to elaborate. It's no need to explain it. It's like I'll just be speaking extra. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. I am certain that you are of similar mind in accordance with the well-known saying, do not abandon your place. May you continue to strengthen Torah study and observance in Morocco and its environs, and may the merit of the entire community stand by you.
Amen. Okay, see, so very important not to leave your flock and to keep do what you need to do in your community, and don't look other places to try to get your fulfillment or enjoyment. Okay, and we're going to end off with text number 11. Sylvia.
Oh. Though all Jews must exert whatever influence they can the world over, they must know that their first obligation is to their local community. Only after becoming a father to your local community can you become a father to the world at large.
Beautiful. So to wrap up, we learn what the order of our responsibilities and not to just drop old responsibilities or close responsibilities for further responsibilities through Abraham's new name, Av with the Resh, Raham, as opposed to calling him now Avham. So now when you hear the name Avraham, you remember that Resh, the Ra stands for not forgetting your old responsibilities or your young responsibilities to your more expanded responsibilities. They all are very important.
Important, right?
And that is the end.
So is this some of these classes do a lot of younger women, because like what it said about your family and so forth, and it had that letter of the from the daughter of an activist. I mean, all different ages take these courses.
So actually, this course is not just for women. It's really I think mostly men give the course. I've said this before. I think I'm only one of like maybe 12 women that give the course.
Oh,